So for those of you coming back, thank you. For those of you that don't know Mr. Eric Soreski, I had a rather lengthy way of describing him last time, so I think I'll cut to the chase a little more. Eric's just a really interesting and impressive guy, but he's spent a long time developing what he likes to call a renaissance mind, and what I take that to mean is that he's done a lot of academic study of various different non-Western medical techniques, but he's also taken it upon himself to then rigorously study those things in person. And so this Brain Bonanza piece is, for us at least, sort of a culmination of all of Eric's research and then application of those techniques. And so we want to make sure that you guys can move forward in good brain health and hopefully extend your career as Rotarians. So without further ado, Mr. Eric Soreski.
Thank you, John. Good morning. Thank you for being here today. And let me see. It's working now. Great. So thank you for being here. What we have today is the second unit of a system. But first of all, I would like to again acknowledge and thank everybody in the team that made this and is continuing to make this possible. So we have Luke, David, Jeff, and Sean, the core team that basically has set up this entire program. And however, we wouldn't be anywhere in addition to the experts that are providing us the infrastructure support in terms of videotaping and in terms of the entire equipment. So thank you for everyone for your work. All this is on the website as well. So the PowerPoint as well as the video will be progressively put on the website, so I encourage you to go there. The process to go in there is register, wait for a confirmation of the registration that allows you to then go and download the files should you be interested in having the material. The reference to what is spoken will also be online, so you not only have the PowerPoint, but everything that is said here is based on research that are done at NIH and a variety of other institution. Now, 30 minutes is really a challenge, and it's always a challenge to provide something that appears simple and not make it complicated. So if it appears complicated and not simple, I hope that we can make that better in the future. Our concept was really to look at how do we look at the brain in terms of aging or in terms of a variety of dysfunction, not only as the individual, but as the individual within a community or an organization, and how the potentiation of the individual will then make the organization more, will increase the awareness of the organization within itself and then within the context of a community. We chose very specifically, but not exclusively, just for practical reason, 3 components, which are food, which is what we are covering now, air, and interaction, which is part of what will be done in the fall, but has already started with the David option. Now, as a small logarithmic phase, we have the brain and the brain within the community, which is what we are trying to do. Eating, breathing, and interacting with the Da Vinci pairing option that started now, so that we have in the fall the ability to retrospect and look at what happened at that very specific unit that is part of the overall interaction unit. In terms of eating, we started with supplement last week, looking at the aging of internal organ, looking at some of the interaction of medication in terms of the increase or decrease of vital supplements, and then we look at B12, D, and magnesium. The purpose at that level was to do a grassroots effort, which is basically what is simple to change in our life. And the simple thing is to look at some of those factors and with the support of the appropriate healthcare professional, look if there is any potential deficiency of B12, D, and magnesium, all of which impact on brain health. With that, we then move that into the website, and we move to the second unit today, which is diet. Next week, we'll move into the unit called nootropic. Again, terms that may be questionable, but it is about all that is outside that can be taken that may potentiate some aspect of the brain. We look at the pros and cons and the awareness of what to choose for within a small context. Today, we'll go through some concepts that are simple, but yet the underlying theory is complex. So my hope, as of last time, which is basically, here are some very simple things you can do. Today there are some simple things that you can take with you and then bring forth, again, with a healthcare professional that is a specialist in the field, such as a nutritionist. We will look at temperature of what we eat or what we put in the system. We look as an example of what can be complex, but although addressed in a simple way, serotonin. And then we look at this fascinating topic of research that probably will revolutionize the entire field of nutrition and some of the medication aspects in the next 4 or 5 years, which is the microbiome, and complete with a good diet. So, in terms of temperature, we often think, so here's a smart diet, and how do we feed our brain? In terms of water, again, and here the sample here shows that actually they're all interlinked together, and they will be interlinked in terms of an interesting way. Water. A question that we never really asked about water, we are all very familiar about temperature, that is water and temperature. Temperature, we all know what temperature is. Basically, you go home, you set the heater, you set the cooler, you have an understanding of what it is, how much it costs, what it may do, what it may not do. However, do you know what it does when you put water in your system that has a specific temperature? That's the key. And so basically, because it's the line of what we are going to look for, we start with a simple concept. The concept is supported also by the understanding that because we are stable organism, everything that goes in the system has to be brought to the body temperature. So that already brings forth an understanding of water will have to be evaluated in time. So the question is, warm water, cold water, body temperature. And here we have a look at the different things in terms of body temperature, room temperature, faucet temperature, fridge temperature, tea temperature. Here's what happens if you are exposed to the outside. When you are exposed to the outside, when we have the cold outside, the body will first do something very interesting. It will shut down the capillaries. So basically, we try to keep the heat inside. If we are too cold, the second things that happen, the muscle activate and you shiver. The shivering process of adaptation to cold is because you are trying to increase your internal heat. So you reduce the surface of what is touching the outside, and then you start your own regulation, this process being looped into some of the brain activation. The other aspect, if it is hot outside, and what we do is we move heat through radiation and convection. It's a passive process, but we also have the opening of the blood vessel near the surface. Now, imagine that you flip over like a glove. So if you have a glove and then reverse the glove, this is what's happening to your stomach. When you put something in your stomach, you'll have the same effect. Now, here is your stomach, and you drank a whole bunch of fluid, and this is what you can imagine in terms of this. So, here it is, cold fluid in the stomach. What happens is that your blood circulation at the level of the stomach stops, and then you start having muscle reaction around the stomach in terms of the protection of this. The inverse happens with hot fluid. What happens is that basically you have an additional system here. Remember, this is a passive system in terms of heat propagation, but you open the blood vessel, that's when you sweat when you drink hot fluid. Now, around 1995, I actually worked with that, and I had a very interesting case. That's substance, it's a clinical anecdote, but what substance is? I had a patient that came 4 years of irritable bowel syndrome at the point where at that time she was going into a psychiatric evaluation. There was nothing that could be done for her. And she tried to look at Chinese medicine in terms of, can you do something else? I did an evaluation on her, and then basically at the end of the evaluation I said, I won't treat you. Here's what I want you to do, is you drink warm fluid. If you drink beer, you heat it up. If you eat ice cream, you put it in the microwave. You come back next week. The symptoms disappeared, and actually that patient never had to do anything else but to basically change the fluid system in her body. It turns out that research in terms of the gastrointestinal system and temperature now show that we have a hypersensitivity to cold, and so some people will react by cramping and by having diarrhea, for example, because the water is flushed out instead of being taken in. So it also turns out as we age, the thermoregulation system change. And so our adaptation to cold and adaptation to heat drops down. This is quite important because basically you also have, in addition to that, last week we saw that the curve of gastric juice drops as we age. So the gastric juice is important, but if you dilute the gastric juice and then you have an impaired water issue to start with, then your digestion itself is affected. So it's quite complicated. You see, it goes into the stomach and then it's absorbed, and then the massive amount of absorption is in the intestine, where we will find the bacteria that are part of the system that is important for us. And we also found, before going to the conclusion, it was just found that not too long ago, 2 years ago, that actually the adaptation to cold is, in terms of a small animal, a relationship between the host, which is the organism, the human being, or the animal, and the bacteria in the gut. So if you put a rat in cold circumstances, they adapt, and you shift the microbiome, which is the gut bacteria, into a rat that is not adapted to cold, the rat will change, and the metabolism of fat will change actually as a result of the interaction between the gut bacteria and the host. So this basically brings us to the first point, very easy. If you have an issue with heat, cold, or if you're aging and your gastrointestinal system is impaired, which basically brings you to an impairment of the variety of different aspects of how to bring your brain, you can see, should I drink room temperature, warm temperature, before or after meals? Anyone want to answer that? Before, after? Yes.
Yeah, after.
After. Drinking after? Why?
It's just what I was always told to do. It's what my mother did. We didn't drink during the meal. We drank afterwards.
It's the wisdom of age. Drinking after is basically you don't dilute the gastric juice. So the gastric juice are basically stronger in terms of the affect. So it is better to drink after, and it is better to drink at body temperature, closer to the body temperature, which would be room temperature or warm. Warm temperature, again, is also the wisdom of the age. You'll find that culture that live in hot weather will drink hot or spicy. Why? Because they basically assist the function of the kidney by promoting transpiration, sweating, through drinking hot. So that's also quite an interesting thing. So remember, if the enzyme in your stomach, again, to come back to that question, the enzyme in your stomach are very heat sensitive. So basically, if you drink a wonderful cold glass of water before that, you knock down your enzyme as well, and you move into this thing. Interestingly, in Chinese medicine, you also have a concept of the maturation of the gastrointestinal in terms of children. So basically, anything cold, including ice cream, was in the traditional aspect of the culture avoided, to permit the child to have a gut system that would basically mature correctly. So that's the first point. It's basically, this is nuanced because the use of cold water can be nuanced in terms of athlete. An athlete could say, well, I'm going to drink cold because that's going to help me not overheat. However, then there's a variety of questions that open. Any question about the water temperature?
I have a question about water. What about carbonated water? Not sugary drinks, but just, water that's carbonated. Does that make a difference on your system?
It doesn't make a difference, but there have been studies that also show that actually if you drink water that has a little bit of sugar in it, it will make a change in terms of the amount of work that the system create out of it in terms of thing. For a variety of years, there was also a saying that says drink cold because it will make you lose weight. Those studies have actually shown to be negative. It's not the amount of heat system is not correct in terms of using it as a weight control. So sorry for those of you who drink a lot to control weight.
I got a question. My wife will make a warm lemon water in the morning, and I'll just, make it cold. And I get the concept of the warm, but the lemon seems like you're putting something acidic in an acidic environment. in your stomach. Do you know any? Is there any rationale? Like, she's like, it's a cleansing type of thing, but is there really a scientific rationale if you're already putting a low pH fluid into a low?
What
pH
is the
stomach?
question exactly?
What's the concept behind a lemon water? Like, because I know that people do that, like they kind of as a purifying thing to drink a warm lemon water.
Because basically your body has nothing to do in terms of absorption. So basically it's warm, it's close to the body temperature, and the body can use it immediately. The lemon in it, because it's body temperature, the enzyme activity of the lemon is also ready to start. So basically, what you're saying, what you're doing is basically you're avoiding a latency period where the system has to warm it up in terms of action. So that's is a wonderful question. So that moves us to another concept. We were moving things into the stomach, and now we are going to explore serotonin in terms of the beautiful. It's a beautiful system. I actually ran into an article where a scientist was able to write about serotonin in almost poetry. So imagine poetry and biochemistry together. It's quite interesting. We went only through serotonin, brain hormone that makes us happy, consists of dopamine, serotonin, endorphin, and oxytocin. Oxytocin is also a cold-related system. So, for example, for long-distance swimmers, oxytocin is an interesting aspect of being boosted. But remaining at the level of serotonin, we know that serotonin has two locations that is made. One is the gut, one is the brain. 95% of the serotonin is found in the gut and 5% in the brain. This long explanation here says that basically serotonin is found in almost all physiological aspects of our system. In the brain, in the central nervous system, in the peripheral nervous system, in the function of the peripheral gut system, and more importantly, in terms of a social interaction, in the mood. Not so much in terms of depression per se, but everything that is related to depression. That is mood. It impacts the level of the mood, being in a bad mood, basically. That's a serotonin sign. Anxiety, not being happy. So I'm using those umbrella terms, but they're very important in terms of the description of a serotonin. Self-esteem, anxiety, and an aggressive behavior. All these pertain to serotonin. You can identify around you, within you maybe also, or within the context of a societal interaction, some of those elements. Since you are all actively engaged in the Da Vinci interactive program, you might see that in some of the people that you're working with. Bowel function is also very important. Nausea, by the way, you know, the serotonin in your gut is also part of the chemical substance that will help you flush any kind of toxin. So it is important at all those levels. Now, here is another way of looking at it. It will affect your behavior, and then it will affect a variety of central nervous system, body temperature. Since we had body temperature, that's how I moved from body temperature to this one. Circadian rhythm, which is a fascinating topic in itself, extraordinary topic, including the treatment of cancer, because basically cancer cells have a different rate of proliferation during the day. So if you hit the cancer with the treatment in the morning rather than in the afternoon, a study in '96 showed that ovarian cancer would have very significant different response by being treated in the morning or afternoon. But that's another topic. So, to arrive to serotonin in the brain specifically, we have to eat tryptophan. Serotonin is not something that we eat. We eat tryptophan, which is one of the 5 essential amino acids. Essential means that basically we cannot synthesize it, we have to eat it. So you eat tryptophan, it goes with, I will use a metaphor, tryptophan goes with its bodies in the stomach, goes into the bloodstream, and then undergoes its journey to the variety of different places it needs to go. The problem are twofold in terms of what happens to tryptophan if we want tryptophan to arrive to the brain. It happens that The friends of tryptophan, which is isoleucine, valine, leucine, tyrosine, and phenylalanine, other amino acid, they are basically stronger in terms of, because at the level of the brain, we have a guard. It's the brain frontier. There's a guard there that looks at everything that comes in. And those blue molecules there are much smarter into going in than tryptophan. And what happened there, and they're also really happy in terms of some interaction with the insulin. So basically, if we eat tryptophan in a meal that has all the other amino acids are going to the brain, the guard will stop serotonin. Or will stop tryptophan. Now, if we eat tryptophan with sugars or carbohydrate to be more complete, what happens is that the carbohydrate intake boosts up the insulin response. Insulin goes in, take all those blue molecules and bring them to the liver, but doesn't like tryptophan. So tryptophan is really a left out. The brain barrier doesn't like it. Insulin doesn't like it much either. So, but if you put insulin there, it will take the blue one to the liver. Tryptophan then all by itself will go to the brain, knock on the door, and the guard there will say, okay, I'll let you in. And you can see this is the two different levels. This is quite important and reflects on the complexity of diet, basically, because if you're going to pop out some tryptophan and basically eat something that has a lot of amino acid or a lot of protein, a good steak, well, your tryptophan is not going to go to your brain. So that's where, basically, when you start doing a diet, you're like, well, how am I going to do that? And that's what we are going to start seeing. Tryptophan, this is what I'm listing on the web. You have a variety of different things. Now, this is an extraordinary website that is listed, that I'm giving you. You basically, I'll go on the website, you can enter up to 3 components of food and basically give me tryptophan, carbohydrate, and protein. And so that's the research I did last night. I said, give me tryptophan and carbohydrate, and it lists all the food. There's basically 6 screens of food. And so basically now I can say, okay, I want something that has carbohydrate and tryptophan that has a high load of that. And if I want to be more specific, I could also say protein. And I look at those numbers there, and I can say, okay, sesame seed, very high in tryptophan, very high on carbohydrate. That's something that will do good because the carbohydrate and the tryptophan will go in there. Same thing for milk, for cheese. Now look at what happened here. You do have a variety of any kind of meat will have basically high level of, they can have a relatively high level of tryptophan, but no carbohydrate. So basically, no effect on your brain. So you will remain grumpy, irritated. So this is what's also interesting in terms of carbohydrate. You also have what is called the glycemic index. Anyone knows what the glycemic index is about? The glycemic, yes.
It's your body's response to, as far as how much sugar is produced.
Exactly. So basically what it is it's within the line there. It's very important for diabetics and type 2 and type 1. Glycemic index is how quickly you respond to the carbohydrate. So you're right around the line, but you see, so basically anything that is basically white sugarish kind of or artificial sugar, very quick response. You eat it, it creates an insulin storm, and your sugar level goes way up, and then it drops. That's the red line. The green line is basically slow released sugar, which is much better for a diabetic, for example. So, but if you're looking for a glycemic response that is high so that you can use it for tryptophan, that's important. And then you can combine that, so you also have a sugar sensitivity in terms of type 2 diabetes. So you modulate that. Here, this is an example where we don't have a type 2 diabetes situation. So basically right there. So what's interesting is white rice also is very quick, which always brought me into a situation that's with this kind of glycemic, because constant use of this kind of red line is disruptive to your system. That's part of what brings you into a cellular resistance to sugar. But it gets more complicated, and I'm sorry about the complication here. If we use tryptophan with protein, tryptophan doesn't go to the brain. If we modulate the glycemic response by combining food, we get different graphs. So basically here you have kidney bean with grain, vinegar, and oil. It completely changed the way your body interacts with that. So again, that's just for your awareness that it's fairly complicated. But in terms of glycemic index, which is what is important for us to try to see how can we manage a place where we're going to get as much tryptophan into the brain, so I'm going to be happy. I have a meeting this afternoon, and I just want to be sociable. So that's the thing. And so glycemic index are rated by low, medium, and high. The lower is the better, actually. And so what we have, the lower is the better, that's right. But so we look here in the lower one, so basically peanuts would be an interesting one there, for there. But no, they are all ranked from lower to above here. The higher means that your sugar release is the quickest. Being Belgian, not French, I'm also very interested in one of the highest ones, which is the French baguette. French baguette is one of the highest bread glycemic index. So when you eat a French baguette, you have basically a sugar storm in your body. And then you go there to the oatmeal, baked potatoes. In terms of vegetable, you have an interesting aspect too. Fruits is what we want. So you have the grapefruits there and the watermelon, 72. So what does that mean? Here's another way. This is on the website for you to use. And the glucose load is another way to look at it. I will skip that. Here's the baguette. So basically I was like, what can I do to get my serotonin up? Baguette, white bread, whole wheat, powdered milk, and milk. So that leaves me with two ways to look at that. We go back here to some of the food here. In the glycemic index, we have basically what I've been showing you, and then in terms of food, what is it? Proteins, okay, I didn't list it on this one. So, but it's on another one. That brings us to the second tip. The first tip, modulate your water temperature if you want to feel more comfortable and you want to facilitate the process of ingestion. And if you have gastrointestinal issue, that because a lot of people don't realize that gastrointestinal issue impairs the social life. If you speak with someone that has IBS or Crohn's disease, there are people that are very uncomfortable. They are constantly, their objective is to find where the toilet is. That's the first objective. Where's the toilet near me? And so you imagine the discomfort. That's a discomfort on the social level. There's discomfort in terms of a variety of interaction. But for us here, the conclusion, cheese sandwich. So if you have a baguette or white bread with cheese, think of a cheese with hole. If the cheese has hole, it has a high tryptophan level. The baguette, the French bread, has the high carbohydrate level. So basically, if you eat a baguette with cheese and turkey, you're good. If you don't like the turkey, if you don't like the cheese, you can switch to salmon and to herring fish. So you have a very healthy diet that you can start to modulate. If you want to have a milkshake, so you can do that, or you can have a milkshake that is basically baby powdered milk or regular non-vitamin C, non-vitamin D, non-vitamin milk system with honey and grain, and you create a milkshake. Then you have throughout the day, you have a variety of different ways where you have an input of tryptophan and serotonin system. Any question about this? So this is the second trick. Yes.
Quick question. I understand what you're saying about modulating with some carbohydrates to help your brain absorb the tryptophan and turn it into serotonin. My question is, you're using the sandwich as an example. Could you also modulate, or wouldn't it be wiser to modulate with something like rice you know, because it's a lower, has a
That's right.
lower glycemic index, like, you know, but well, like basmati rice or something, or brown rice.
That's right. So what we have here is someone who assimilated the information wonderfully, and he's already in the creative mode, which is fantastic. He's already saying, I understand the concept and I can now change that to the next step. And that's, your answer is an answer for all of us. It's like, once the principle is understood, the choice is yours. And so I was choosing something very simple to create an image. And, but I would like to thank you for expanding this to the next step.
Thanks.
To take it further, and this isn't healthy, but couldn't you use like a gummy patty, or like, you know, like just eating a simple sugar to break in, like just get a simple carbohydrate that's easily digested?
That's right, but then you really go to the extreme where the sugar itself is an issue.
Sure.
So
If
it
you just
is.
want to get that brain.
That's right.
You know,
If you have no other thing, you can have your patch of, you can have your sandwich pack with all that, and that's perfect.
So if you add more of a protein to, say, a white, like a vanilla ice cream with walnuts on it, does that compensate?
The protein system will offset the tryptophan assimilation at the level of the brain. Always, always. You have 5 of them. Tryptophan is alone, weak, sad, and unable to compete with his brothers and sisters. That's what it is.
In the last milkshake example, you discussed milk that did not have vitamin D.
Yes, because apparently the glycemic index of non-vitamin D milk is better. So thank you for I left that out, but you caught it.
I think you have to be careful about that milk, because I was told somewhere along the line, and I don't know if this is still true, but that they put vitamin D in all milk, even if it isn't labeled.
That's right. It's very difficult to find a non-processed milk today. So it's really a challenging question. Thank you. Yes?
What about milks that are not cow-based? You know, like cashew or almond or that kind of milk? Is that would that be good?
It's not as good, but it's also part of that. There's also kefir, which we hopefully we may have time for it. Kefir is very good, and that's part of what we will cover. So I'm going to move further so that we can finish. That was the second thing. Now, those are huge terms. I love them. Holobiont and hologenome. What does that mean? It means that us and our bacteria are actually a superorganism. The system, the research are now showing this, that we are moving into an understanding of people in their interaction with the bacteria. That also means harmonious interaction. That also means in the superorganization of a club, of an organism. The more we understand in terms of system, the more we could that. Now this is quite incredible. Human gut, 5,000 bacteria, human skin, 1,000. This is where they are. Some of them are very frightening, some of them are very kind. Now, to go very quickly, this has now been supported by scientific evidence that the gut bacteria will influence obesity, depression, anxiety, pain. New research on autism, multiple sclerosis, cardiovascular risk, and now we also have, there's like a multi-billion-dollar research that was a grant that is given in terms of Parkinson's disease and this. That's the same with dementia and Alzheimer's. To even go further, the system is so complex that we found some interaction at the level of depression, and not, but last month the research showed up that say that for 2 patients with Parkinson that are similar, one of them responds to the medication, one doesn't. They found out that the reason is because they have different microbes in the gut, and the microbe is breaking down the medication differently. So this is quite important because again, depression, cardiovascular risk, anxiety will impact how as we age. And bad news, so we'll skip this. Bad news, for us last week we saw a whole bunch of bad news in terms of our internal aging process that we cannot avoid even though we don't see it. Same with the bacteria. They age. So we age, they age. and they age in ways that make them much less effective in terms of the interaction. So how do we work with that? Again, we have a shift in the concentration of a variety of them. The first one, the red one, are dominant through age, and then they become dominated by the second one. Neuropsychiatric, that's what I explained. We see that the gut-brain connection is quite important. It's so important that in some families, so you may think, there's an existential question here. Who is who and who is doing what? We have all those bacteria. And if we look at the fly, the Drosophila, there's actually a fly that will go to specific food at the request of the bacteria in the gut. So basically the bacteria in the gut send the request to the fly go eat something that is good for the bacteria, not for the fly, for the bacteria. However, they cooperate, so ultimately they benefit from it, but it's direct request. The stress, this is also very important in terms of brain trauma. We find more and more brain trauma issues that are basically disrupting the whole thing. The bacteria and the brain speak together along three mutually. It's a mutual connection between the two brains. So here too, there's like the question is, if you're hungry, is it your gut bacteria or is it your brain that is asking something? And sometimes now we don't really know. We also found out that for every human cell, there's one bacteria in the body. It used to be a 1 to 10 ratio in favor of the bacteria. It was challenged last year, but it's still for each cell in our body, there's one bacteria in our body as well. Here is the correct ratio. That's huge. So basically, they are dominant. We are dominated. They are dominant. So we have to make peace with them and make sure they are happy in terms of how they work with us. One way, in terms of milk substitute or milk addition, is kefir. Listed on the website will be how you use that. Kefir is one of the best probiotic, basically regulation of the intestinal system, which also interact at the level of the serotonin and interact in terms of the aging process with the thermoregulation system. So it's interlooped with the overall things that we need today. Kefir is very simple. It's actually quite remarkable. We're still studying it, and it's coming from long time ago. They used to be carried in goat skin bag, and you can find it in Middle Eastern countries, in Afghanistan. It would hang by the door, and you tap it. How do you do kefir? You buy the powder, you put milk into it, you let it overnight, and you have kefir done. I have a kefir batch that is 10 years old. I've been using it for 10 years. When I'm tired about it, I mismanage it, I put it in the fridge and let it rot for 3 months, and then I come back with it. It still survives. It survives everything. But here's what kefir does to you, and this is the third concept of today's presentation. First, water. 2, serotonin. 3, use kefir to regulate in the most intelligent way your gut. It's cheap. All you have to do after you buy the kefir is to buy the milk, or you can use water kefir as well. But tryptophan, calcium, protein, B12. So it goes overlap with last time presentation. It's more powerful than yogurt. It's cheaper than what you can buy over the counter in terms of a pill with powder. It has antibacterial action. It's also improved the risk of osteoporosis. So you can make, for people who are casein lactate intolerant, you can make a coconut water, coconut milk, and sweet liquid. That's also to answer your question, the earlier question, what can you use there? This is the best website on the internet for those of you who love cooking. This person who is in Australia is extraordinary. He will provide you recipes about making a variety of kefir dessert. So, a balanced diet. What can we do with all that we did today is, without becoming too complex, look at quality of food and quality of life. The index of quality of life is the new index in terms of looking at the development of societies. The best one is Mediterranean countries. I know a friend of ours that is going to go and roam El Camino and explore that, but Spain will be the best quality of life country in the next 4 years. It just happens that Spain and Italy and Greece share the Mediterranean diet, which is part of it. Mayo Clinic is stated that the meteorite light is the best one that you can look at. So with the avoidance of too much wine, you have this component, and then you can indulge in this variety of things. This will start today. So my hope today is look for hot water, look for serotonin booster, look for regulation of your gut bacteria by a simple means, kefir being cheap and something that you can add. Any question?
One quick one, just, you talked about the aging of the bacteria with the aging of our cells.
Right.
At about what point, I know it's not exact, but about what point does that start to decrease?
It's not a decrease.
Or the ratio, what point does the ratio shift, rather?
I don't know. It's a great question. Actually, as I was putting that together, I forgot to look at the aging, but that's something I will address and put it into things. Again, the documentation for today's lecture is about 60 articles. It will be all on the web, so you can indulge. Don't have an intellectual indigestion, though. Yes.
Just a quick comment. You can also buy kefir, like at Wegmans. It's already made. They have different flavors. It's definitely an acquired taste, but it's anyways.
That's right. Yes, kefir is all over the place for people that are looking into it. I just like to play with it, so and because it's always there. So, but it's it's the new thing, although it's a very old thing. What I do with kefir, I use it in combination as a milkshake base for serotonin booster.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Just real quick, thank you all for being here today. As you can see, there's an enormous amount of material, research, etc. Go to the website, brainbonanza.org, register. Jeff can help you if you need to reach out for assistance. But please register on the website, and you can take your time to review and learn all these wonderful ideas that Eric's been presenting. Remember that the purpose of the program is to engage and retain Rotarians and to extend our careers. And our motto is healthy member, healthy club, healthy community. So please spread the word, invite others. Thank you very much for being here.